Hi everyone, my name is Marley and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my wrap up of everything I watched in the months of April and May in 2021. I do this every month. I wasn't able to do last month just because of things going on in my personal life, but today I wanted to kind of catch up and talk about all the movies and TV shows that I watched in the last 2 months. So this might be a long video, this might be a lot. I'm gonna try and condense it. I won't necessarily talk about all the TV shows I've watched, but the ones that I've watched enough of to actually say something about. So looking at my list, it looks like there's about 12 TV shows and 5 movies. I know, only 5 movies to talk about, so let's get into it. So let's just start off with movies. I don't know why, but let's do it. So one of the movies I watched in April was 500 Days of Summer. This is a movie that has been around for a long time. I feel like you'd always see it online and on Tumblr back in the day. I never watched it, and I always was curious about what it meant of 500 Days of Summer. My immediate thought was that Summer dies, that it's one of those cancer stories where she dies. Anyways, won't spoil it. Actually, I will spoil it. It's about this couple, and cannot remember character names anymore, but it obviously has Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character and Zooey Deschanel, they start dating, or they start sleeping together, but then she's the one that doesn't want to commit, kind of thing, if I'm remembering correctly. And he's just has this fantasy that she will eventually grow feelings for him while they're having this friends with benefits relationship. It's kind of gender swapped. I feel a lot of stories are the guy does want to be in a relationship and the girl's oh, he'll change his mind once he falls in love with me. It's kind of was gender swapped, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt was obsessed with her and insistent that she should be with him, and she told him straight up she didn't want that. It's kind of his story of being in love with her and then having to get over it. So it's sort of having a relationship and then going through the breakup. Honestly, it tries to make it seem she is the villain for not wanting to be with him, but at the end of the day, I think he is the villain. She literally straight up told him she was not interested in being in a relationship with him, and he never gave it up. So I didn't really love this movie. I feel I know I just spoiled it, but it's been out for years. I don't know. I feel I want to watch a romance movie to see a nice romance. I get what they were doing, trying to make it maybe more of a unique story, but I just didn't love it, and maybe because the main character was not super likable. Moving on, then I also watched Things Heard and Seen in April, which has Amanda Seyfried, however you say it. It's on Netflix. It's a horror thriller movie. It's about this family, and of course they move to a new town because of the husband's job. There's the husband, the wife, and their little daughter, and then there's weird things going on in the house. It seems it might be haunted. It's kind of one of those stories, but then it definitely takes a turn, and it's not your typical haunted house story. I would say though, I wouldn't overly recommend it because the first part of the movie was really interesting, and I think me and the people I was watching with were very engaged and wondering what was gonna happen and what was going on with the husband and with the ghosts and our main character. Is she crazy, or are there really ghosts? And it just got worse and worse. Not that it was a terrible movie, but the ending was not it. It went somewhere different than I thought it would go, but I wasn't happy with it. Check it out if you want, but I wouldn't overly recommend it because the ending was just disappointing to me. So now for the movies I watched this month. First off, we have Love and Monsters, which was on Netflix, starring Dylan O'Brien. Love him. I actually watched the first half of this in April and then the second half in May. I actually liked this movie. I would recommend it. If you are into movies that are just what it says, guys that are hopelessly in love and also a lot of monsters, basically a post-apocalyptic dystopian movie where the world has been overtaken by these monsters that are basically giant insects. I don't know if they're supposed to be aliens in the movie, I forget, but basically all of their survivors are just living in these little underground shelters and stuff like that, and our main character is not a very good fighter or defender. He's the cook of his little tribe, but he wants to go find this girl that he loved back when apocalypse happened, and he's gonna travel above ground with all the monsters to go and find her. So it's basically his adventure, traveling to find her, meeting some like friends along the way, having to fight monsters along the way, and kind of like going through this like personal growth journey. And it was pretty fun. Like, I obviously love to see Dylan, even though he keeps taking these action roles, and I'm like, please take rom-com roles. Like, please play characters similar to Styles Stilinski and stop taking these action roles. But anyways, this was a cute movie. It kind of did go a lot of different places. The ending just kind of like kept going and going, but it was cute. Check it out. Another movie I watched recently was Moxie on Netflix. I think this is based on a book, definitely a YA or children's book, but it was kind of one of those teen movies that you see on Netflix where like it's a little cheesy, the script needs a lot of work. It was made by Amy Poehler actually, and she was also in it, but it's about this teenager. She's kind of like a typical teenager, you know, because of her mom and like her mom's past. She kind of learns about like activism because her mom was really like into activism when she was a teen, and so this girl decides to make this zine that is all about feminism basically, because she witnesses some sexism at her school with the jocks, you know, harassing girls, the teachers making all the girls with bigger chests cover up and sort of like discriminating against them in that way. So she decides to make this zine about feminism, and then these other girls are really into it, and then they make this whole like Moxie group that is about like girl power and feminism and like supporting each other. It actually ended up being a pretty good movie. I really like the message. Obviously it's not for my age group anymore. It definitely would be for like younger teens. I like that movies like this are being made for that age group so they can see girls, you know, need to support each other, and that like you're not alone. Like there were some serious topics that actually got addressed, like abuse, like physical abuse in this, and I'm just like happy that a movie like that exists. There was also like a really cute main guy love interest that was like really nice, and I'm glad that we're getting away from the like jock kind of mean guy being a love interest and making it being more like the nerdy nice guy. Not that all nerds are nice guys, but you know what I mean. And yeah, I would recommend this for teenagers. If you're in your adult years, you probably will not like it as much. You'll probably find it a little cringy but not relate to it as much, but definitely for teens I recommend. I think it would teach some good lessons. The last movie I watched was Unfriended, The Dark Web, I think it's called. This is like a horror movie that is one of those ones where it's like all taking place on screen and like over a Skype call, so you're just seeing the guy's computer screen. I am actually really liking these movies. There's been more of them during the pandemic, I think, which makes sense, but this one was actually filmed before the pandemic. Basically this guy gets hold of this new laptop, and then weird things start happening with the laptop. I don't really want to say much more because it went in like a different direction than I thought. This was really good, and this is probably one of my favorites. Is this my favorite movie that I watched? I think this would be my favorite movie that I watched, or Love and Monsters, so definitely recommend that if you're into horror movies and you like that style of it being like all on the computer screen. Okay, so let's get into the TV shows. First of all, I want to mention that I finished watching Community, which was earlier in April, so it's hard for me to like remember everything, but basically if you don't know, this is like a bit of an older sitcom show, and it's about this kind of a random group of people that are at this community college. So we have, you know, the like smooth talking lawyer, we have like the mom, the old guy, the like young preppy girl, the athlete, like all these different types of characters that you wouldn't think would be friends but end up becoming friends in the series. And it had some very good moments that were really, really funny, and that's why overall I would recommend this show if you want like a new comedy series with like an ensemble cast. But there were also a lot of like cringe, like not that funny moments. The show does a lot of like themed episodes if you like that kind of thing, where, you know, maybe they do a musical episode, maybe they do one where they're parodying these different things. If you like that kind of humor and those types of shows, I would recommend. Another show that finished in April, I believe, or it was early May, is Big Brother Canada. So I really, really enjoyed this season. If you don't know what Big Brother Canada is, it's basically like a game show. It's kind of similar to Survivor, where there's like these challenges they have to do, but it's a lot more cushy because they have to live in this house, and basically you're trying to win power to get people evicted, and it's kind of like the last person standing wins. There's also a US version that's going to be starting this summer that I'm going to watch, but this season of Big Brother Canada, I think was really great. I feel like all the characters had good games and were really playing, because in past years there's been characters that like are not there to play. And it was also the most diverse cast there's ever been. I'll spoil it now since it's been over for a while, but the winner ended up being the first Black person to win in North America. So between Big Brother Canada and Big Brother US, which I think is really, really cool. And he never got like put on the block at all during the whole season. That was really cool to see that winner. But I really liked the season because I honestly, in the top 4, out of the top 4, I would have been happy with like any of them winning, which is really cool because normally I like hate certain people that are in the end, or I don't think they deserve it. So it was really nice to see a like well-balanced group of castmates. Yeah, just gets me pumped for the US version, even though I'm sure it will be more problematic than Canada. Another show I watched was The Stand, which is the, what was it, Amazon Prime adaptation of Stephen King's book, The Stand, which I have not read, but my boyfriend read, so he was able to like tell me little things throughout while we watched it of like differences and things like that. Overall, I did not love this show. Neither did he, as someone who read the book. So keep that in mind if you're wondering if you should watch it or not. I have not heard a lot of people talk about it, so I'm assuming not many people watched it or liked it, but it's essentially a like pandemic story, which is interesting. I forget what they call it now, but it's like this, it makes you have a lot of phlegm or something. It's this really gross virus. There's just like this group of people. It's kind of like Lost. It's like this random group of strangers that end up coming together and like creating this sort of community, but then there's also like this evil man who's trying to like corrupt them, and he has like his own crew. Then there's like the older woman played by Whoopi Goldberg, I forget her name, and she has like the good crew. It has a lot of like themes of like good and evil, heaven and hell, I guess, God and the devil, if you like that kind of stuff, or if you just like those shows that bring all these strangers together, which normally I do. But I just feel like the way they put the show together, I just feel like I could have seen it being better. The choices that they made were just not the ones that I would have made, I guess, in terms of like revealing things earlier than they could have. But, you know, it is what it is. I never read the book, so I wasn't too invested, but keep that in mind if you're thinking of watching that. I wouldn't overly recommend. All right, another show I've been super excited to be getting back into is Good Trouble. So this is the show that is a spin-off of The Fosters, if you know that show. But basically it's following Callie and Mariana from The Fosters, and they are in LA and basically living their life. They live in this place, I forget what it's called, but it's basically where like all these other people live. It's like an apartment building, I don't know, but it's like all in one space. It's like this, a whole bunch of roommates, and so we're following Callie and Mariana, but also all of their roommates. And again, the show is just so good. I love all of the different characters. We see so many different storylines because of all of the different characters that are all very like diverse in what they do and their life experiences. Like there's an artist, there's a teacher, Callie's into law, Mariana's into like the tech world, there's Alice who is like a comedian. Like there's a lot of different fun storylines that go on, and similar to The Fosters, it deals with a lot of like hard-hitting issues and topics as well, like racism, like sexism in the workplace, stuff like that. So this is a show that I just highly recommend. It also has a lot of like kind of mystery elements as well. I don't even know how to explain that, but it's just such an amazing show. This is one of my favorite shows that is currently on, and I recommend it to everyone. Even if you haven't watched The Fosters, you don't have to have watched that at all. Definitely just dive right into this show. Another show I watched this month was the Shadow and Bone show, which has been talked about a lot, especially on BookTube. I actually maybe have an unpopular opinion. So I read the whole Shadow and Bone and like Grishaverse book series this year leading up to the TV show, and I felt so about the series. I think I gave most of the books 4 stars, as in like I liked them, but definitely had some flaws. And I just want to say I feel like the show had a lot of good things about it that I've been hearing from everyone, because everyone loves it, but I personally felt like there were still a lot of flaws, and I feel like some of the ones from the books were brought into the show, one of which being just not having enough well-established world building in the books and the show. I felt like it was confusing and and needed more like establishment of the different types of Grisha, for example, or Grisha as they say it. Throughout the whole book series, I was always confused. I feel like we never got a great description of the different types of Grisha. It was the same with the show, and I watched it with my boyfriend and he was very confused about things in the world, which also led to like some boredom. When you don't understand what's going on, it's hard to be invested. I also felt like some of the editing choices were not the best. Like it was just like choppy or like weird cuts. Like it doesn't have anything to do with the actors really. It was more so to do with like the production and like how it was put together in the end. The music was also a lot louder than like the dialogue, and I feel like I couldn't always hear the dialogue or like know what they were saying. As someone who read the books, like I sometimes was also confused watching the show, which I don't think is a great sign. Mixed feelings on like how they did the crows thing to integrate it in with Shadow and Bone. I think they did a good job of it, I guess, but I still just have mixed feelings on the fact that they did it and that the crow story like is different. I don't know, I'm just not one of those people that's like loving the show as much as all the other fans, but I'm very happy that so many big fans of the book are also big fans of the show. I just wish that I could have liked it a little bit more. Another show I'm just gonna briefly touch on is Shameless, which finished recently. The final episode aired and it was so sad to see the show end. In the moment, I felt like there were good parts about the ending, but I have to say, looking back, like there definitely could have been a better way to end it in my opinion. I feel like the writers weren't totally prepared to end it because there were so many storylines that were not finished. We had a better ending back in like, I forget what it was, season 8 or 9 or something, where you saw like a happiness for all the characters and like where they could end up. But in this ending, there were like so many characters that were still in the middle of their storyline. We didn't know if Lip got the house that he was wanting to get. We didn't know if Debbie was gonna like leave town. There was something unresolved with like Kevin and V's storyline. Like there was a lot of unresolved things, and I think they definitely wrapped up like Frank's storyline as like the main character and everything. That's great. And I liked the shout outs to Fiona. It was definitely sad that she didn't make an appearance, which is like another thing that I feel like it was lacking. Kind of have mixed like bittersweet feelings about the finale, but overall I would definitely recommend the show Shameless if you have not watched it. There's like 11 seasons, there's a lot of content, and it's about this family living in the south side of Chicago. There's like a whole bunch of siblings because their parents just like don't care. The siblings all have to take care of each other. The parents are off like being addicts, like drug addicts, and the kids have to like fend for themselves and often like get in a lot of trouble and have their own issues. So really recommend this show. Another show I've been watching is The Flash. So this is still like mid-season, like I haven't finished it because it's still airing, but I think it's like the 7th season or something like that. And I'm just feeling, I think I mentioned this in like a previous video, but I'm just feeling like this show really needs to end. It's at the point where like main characters are leaving. It just doesn't have that same vibe that it used to. I don't know. I can't really think of anything to say, so let's just move on. Another show I watched was One Day at a Time. This was a show that used to be on Netflix and then they canceled it, and I forget what network like picked it up, but the 4th season is out. So it was only like 8 episodes and they're all short, so it's very easy to binge. All the other seasons are, I think, still available on Netflix to binge as well, and I just really love this show. This is a sitcom that is about this Cuban American family. The mother is like a veteran, and then the kids have like their own stuff going on. And yeah, it's a sitcom following this family. I really like the mixture of the great humor and comedy involved mixed with the important discussions that the show takes on. As you know, there is a character who is gay. There's, I think, dealings with racism. Thinking back on past seasons, it just takes on like a lot of different topics, kind of similar to a show like Good Trouble, but it's a comedy. I love that mixture and like how they are able to include both of those elements, because a lot of times comedy can be like more problematic, or where it's just like on the edge. It's like, is that problematic or not? And I just like when jokes, you know, are not problematic at all, but they're still really funny. I definitely recommend this show. If you didn't know that the 4th season was out, it is, so definitely catch up. I'm a really big fan of this show, probably one of my top shows that I watched this month. Another show I want to briefly touch on, as there's only been 2 episodes that have come out when I'm filming this, is High School Musical, the musical, this series. This is season 2 of the show. If you guys don't know, it's basically about this high school where they do High School Musical as their spring musical, and so it's about all the people who take part in the musical, all these different teenagers. It's really fun, it's really cute. It has that vibe of Glee because it's obviously a musical, the characters are all singing and talented, but then it also has like that kind of cheeky humor. It has some like zoom ins, and like the characters get like interviewed, which is sort of interesting, as if it's like a documentary, which makes it kind of unique. But this is season 2 and I am enjoying it. I'm still like invested in the characters. I love musicals. I was a little bit disappointed though because they are not doing High School Musical 2. They're doing Beauty and the Beast, which I thought was kind of weird, but the more I think about it, I guess it makes sense. Like they're kind of over the High School Musical thing. Doing number 2 would maybe be just redundant and the same sort of storylines, and now that they're doing Beauty and the Beast, there's different storylines that can come from it, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited to see where the season goes. I like that more of the side characters are getting a chance to shine, which is really nice. So yeah, basically I'm hopeful for the rest of the season. Another new favorite show that I've been watching is Superman and Lois, which is one of the like Arrowverse superhero shows on the CW. And this is a new one that just started, and basically it is about Superman when he is already an established Superman figure, and obviously Lois, who he is married to, and then about their 2 sons that are twins and are actually I think about 14. It's their first year in high school when they find out that one of the kids, or both, who knows, might have inherited Clark's powers. They decide to move from Metropolis back to Smallville so Clark can kind of like have more time with the kids. They can sort of bond on the farm and like be out of the city and out in like the country to experiment with these powers. It's basically a superhero show. Like Superman has his own drama that goes on. Lois has her own stuff going on with like journalism and trying to like solve the mystery, save the town in her own way. But my favorite part of the show has definitely been the 2 sons in high school. I just love seeing like the high school elements and like how the boys are dealing with everything, like finding out Clark has powers, finding out they might, or like does only one of them have it, and like that jealousy. Just want to say Jonathan Kent deserves the world. I'm also watching Vampire Diaries, which I'll talk about. It's reminding me of that like brother relationship that like Damon and Stefan have, where like I just get so annoyed with the one brother and then I absolutely love the other brother. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of this show so far. I like that we're also seeing Lana as well, and if you're into superhero stuff and like a little geek about that stuff, you definitely got to watch this show because I think it's one of the best of CW's superhero shows. Another show that I started this month but I've only watched 2 episodes so far is Euphoria. So this is one of those teenage drama shows that I think was on HBO, definitely on one of like those networks, because the things they show would not be okay for regular TV. But this is a show where it's just like super unrealistic for teenagers, I'm just gonna say, or at least I hope it is. As a 24-year-old looking at the show and imagining that these characters are supposed to be 17, it's honestly heartbreaking, and it's like makes me very uncomfortable because it deals with drug use, drug addiction, a lot of sex, a lot of abuse, honestly, just topics that are like very mature and like not actually for a teenage audience. This probably could have been set in like college. I think they need to like start aging things up like that, but there are a lot of disturbing moments in the first 2 episodes that I won't get into, but I think I will continue watching this show because, you know, I am kind of getting invested in the drama. But there's a lot of mature themes, a lot of things that like could make you uncomfortable, potentially be triggering even. Yeah, it's an interesting show. If this sounds interesting to you, check it out, I guess. So now I just want to touch on the Vampire Diaries. I don't normally talk about rewatches, but I have been talking about the Vampire Diaries a little bit in my what I watched videos just because it was my favorite show back in the day, and like even though I'm rewatching it, like I'm still having feelings and a lot of thoughts. And in a previous video I went off hating on Stefan's character in season 1, and I think I came back, or maybe I haven't yet, but Stefan in season 2 is like the only Stefan that we stan. He gets so much better in season 2. Sorry if I did already mention this in another video, but season 2 is when I can see why people would like him. Get into season 3, season 4, which I'm in now. Absolutely despise his character. I really just hate him so much. He's so hypocritical. He's constantly putting Damon down and saying how evil Damon is when he's literally the Ripper. I know Damon kills people, but like Stefan has probably killed more and like in a worse way. He constantly just focuses on himself. Even when it comes to Elena, like he's always just making it about himself, and it's so frustrating to watch because it's like the show writes him to be this way, like to be unlikable. Like even my boyfriend that's watching it is like, he is literally a villain. Then the show also wants you to be like, oh, he's the good brother, Damon's the bad one. But it's like everything you're writing says the opposite. That Damon is the better brother and Stefan is the worst one. It's, at least I know what's gonna happen in the end, and it's like whatever. But I mean, the show still always like wants to act like Stefan is this great guy, and it's like he's not. He's literally not. But yeah, I'm really enjoying seeing Damon and Elena's scenes, as I always did. They don't bring up as much emotion for me as they did when I was first watching the show and falling in love with them, but I still always enjoy seeing every one of their scenes. I don't really rewatch things, but I actually do highly recommend rewatching your favorite things, especially if it's like years later, because it's been a very, very fun experience for me. Alright, so sorry if this video was super long. I had so much to talk about for the last 2 months, or sorry if it was like a mess. I'm still getting used to talking about TV shows and movies again. I hope you enjoyed my reviews, my brief reviews, and what I would recommend or not. I'll go through what my favorites would be quickly. I think my favorites would be Big Brother Canada. You could probably catch up online and watch the whole season. Good Trouble, amazing show that has like so many elements that you want. Shameless overall as a show, even though I didn't love the finale. One Day at a Time, Superman and Lois. And for a movie, it would be Unfriended, The Dark Web. So take these recommendations as you will. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to see what I watch next month. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.